Hi, and welcome to this week's From the Vault episode from the Magdalen House podcast. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Dallas, Texas, and known affectionately by many as Maggies. Every first and third Wednesday, we share an episode from one of our 3 podcast series. In our From the Vault episodes, we share past podcast releases from our 3 different podcast series: RecoverED, Recovered, Interviews with Alcoholics, and Hope for the Family. Our podcasts aim to connect, inspire, and educate alcoholics, loved ones, and the community to the Magdalen House and the services we offer. We are so glad you're here. Thanks for listening.
Hi guys, my name is Lisa Kroencke and I am a recovered alcoholic. And we survived 2020. How about that? Woohoo! So we're all here, we're good. And that, I think, is a feat in itself. I sent an email out to the staff a couple of days ago talking about all the things that we've done in 2020. Oh, and first of all, my sobriety date is June 2nd of 2007. And I just want to reemphasize that this morning in some of my notes. 2020 was a really challenging year. But I think God is everything or God is nothing, right? So one of the things that I learned from this past year that I just wanted to share with you guys, I think we could all learn from this, and it's not my original material, but is that how to look at things in a different way. And I think that is so appropriate for this morning for 6 and 7, really 4, 5, 6, and 7, because they all go together. But when things are presented to us, we have a choice. When opportunities or situations are presented to us, we have a choice whether to look at things in a positive way or a negative way. How am I going to turn this into something I can be grateful for? Period. And I think the year 2020, especially for me personally, and then for us as an agency, we could be really irritated. I mean, there were so many times, you guys, where, and I maybe even experienced this with some of you guys on the call, where there were women in the house and we had to sit down with them and tell them that they had to leave, like that we couldn't provide services because of COVID. And it was heartbreaking. Probably one of the most difficult moments of my recovery journey was sitting in front of 12 women and telling them that they had to leave the house. And I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not BSing. Because that's in our DNA. That's what we're here to do. So when you have to look at a woman and tell a desperate woman that they have to leave and they have to go find another place to stay for a week or two while we close down, and the woman looks and says, please don't do that. I have no other place to go. It's hard to find the gratitude in that. It's hard not to be pissed off, hard not to be feeling sad and bad. And of course, and we're gonna get into that in a second, it's okay to feel those things, but how do I take the action? What do I do next when presented with these issues in life? What am I willing to do? The thing, after looking back on the scope of the work that we did as an agency in 2020, think about this. We would not be sitting here today together if it weren't for COVID. We would not be. We would be doing different things. We would make you come into the office. We would make you come up to the next step room and do all these in-person meetings. We would not have to do anything virtually. I did not know how to work Zoom 10 months ago. I don't even think I knew what Zoom really was. So in a nutshell, there's so many things that we can look at in this year of pain and suffering and find and pull out the things that we can be grateful for and focus on that. And that's how we can bear witness to others. And I think looking at the last year and what we did as an agency, these things made us a stronger agency if we choose to look at them that way. And they also made us stronger women if we make the choice to look at them in that way. Now, that's a choice we make. God is not doing this to us. He's doing this for us. And I think I have to constantly, I don't know about you, but I'm having to constantly redirect. What am I willing? How willing am I to sweep away everything and willing to do whatever it takes to stay recovered, not to stay sober. Sober is, I don't want to just stay sober. That's actually it's a negative thing to me. What am I willing to do? So in this year of pain, suffering, all the things that were unbelievable, every hard ball thrown, I believe this is one of those years that made us stronger women and a stronger agency, because it's about perspective. It's all about perspective. So these are the things I was making notes that I really wanted to bring to you guys today in 6 and 7, because I think it's really important, because it's all in perception and perspective. And I think more than any other time in our lives, personally and as an agency, we have to look at things in a different light. I have to put on a different set of glasses, or I'm going to crumble and go, you know what? I just can't do this anymore. You know how many times, and I know every single person has felt this way over the past year, just wanted to run away and not come back. I give up. You win. I'm done. I'm going to go find a beach. I don't need this anymore. And it was a testament of willpower. That's when we can use our own willpower, right? And faith that there's got to be something better on the other side. And I think if you can think about that perspective and perception in the context of 6 and 7, I think it's going to help for us to talk about, we're going to be talking about 2020 for years and decades to come. There is no doubt. But I think if we look at it in a way where we can learn from it and be better women because of it, that's going to help. That's going to help. They're going to be parallel with our program, our recovery program, with the recovery program. All right, so let's turn to page 76 in the book. As you guys know, I'm a big book junkie, and every step has a page. Every step has a page number, period. And there are certain steps that have several pages, right? Like step 3, step 4, good Lord, and step 5. I mean, step 1. These two steps, 6 and 7, they don't have pages, they have paragraphs. That's not to be confused, because some people get confused with the lack of information, the quantity of information, with the quality of information. And the quality of information is enormous. And there's a huge reason why 6 and 7 are brief, that the words are less and the meanings are enormous. And if you look at the history, you can go back to there's like the 12 and 12. There's a lot of books that we can read that talk about not God. I don't know if you've ever read, what is his author? Oh, Ernest Kurtz. Ernest Kurtz, Not God. It is an amazing book if you want to learn about the history of AA. Get your highlighter out and your pen, because it's like the big book where you can't read it without, mine's marked up. But it talks about the history of 6 and 7, and the meaning of 6 and 7 are very deep. So don't be confused about the brevity or the lack of words, because the meaning, it's almost like it's a place where in 6 and 7, we sit and think about the meaning and the depth of what these words mean. So perception and perspective. All right. So before we get to page 76, I want to always say at the bottom of page 75, there's some mechanical kind of stuff. There's some talks about step 5 and the last part of step 5, where we go home for an hour. We thank God from the bottom of our hearts. We know him better. All of those things. That's a part of step 5. That is not a part of step 6. I get that frequently, where women will be confused and they think that starts step 6. And the reason why I say that with such conviction is because if you look at the top of page 76, the very first sentence gives us direction on why that's true. It says, if we can answer to our satisfaction, which is that we've done steps 1 through 5, right? That's our satisfaction. If we can answer to our satisfaction the questions that are on the preceding page, then we look at step 6. We then look at step 6. So all of that is step 5, steps 1 through 5. Now we're starting to get into step 6. The other thing I want to say before I get into 6 and 7 is that for me, Every single time I meet with a woman, I always pray together before we get the step work done. Before we start the step work, period. That's just the one thing that I always do. It's just a habit. It doesn't say that in the big book. So whenever I say stuff that I do personally with the women I sponsor, and it's not in the book, I'll always say that that's my opinion. It's kind of weird to say, well, that's my opinion to pray, because praying is healing. But I pray every single time we get together. But the interesting thing about 6 and 7 is these steps, the way I was taught, my sponsor and I teach it, is that 6 and 7 are done alone. 6 and 7 are done with me alone. Now, when I am going through the work of 4 and 5, I'll start to give the directions of 6 and 7. So whenever they get finished with their 5th step, I have the women call me, and then we usually go over 6 and 7 on the phone. I rarely do 6 and 7 in person. It's interesting to me when someone will say, I'm on step 6. Well, how can you be on step 6? Because it's kind of, you do them together. So that's how I do it. Doesn't really talk about that in the book, but that's what's worked for me. And the women I work with, we'll go through 5. I'll give them the directions for 6 and 7. And then after they're finished with their hour, they call me, and then we talk about 6 and 7. Because 6 and 7, like I said, there's such misperceptions about these steps because of the brevity of the words. But do not get that confused, because they're extremely important. Now, all right, let's just read through step 6, and then I want to go back through and talk about it. So if we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. We've emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we ready? Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we find, which we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. What I was going to say was, if step 10 is 4 through 9 all rolled into one, that means that I'm going to be doing step 6 every day. If I'm doing step 10 every day, then I'm literally doing steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 every day of my life, right? So how is step 6? The question I ask is not about, for sure, about how relevant step 6 is in my life when I'm going through the steps, because it's really important as you're going through the steps. But what is the relevance of step 6 and 7 in my daily life? Like, how is that going to help me to live as a recovered woman, to bear witness to others, to fit myself so that someone wants what I have? Remember, that's the ultimate goal, right? Is being so spiritually awakened that someone wants what I have and they ask me how I did it. And so that's really what the ultimate goal is. So, all right. We've emphasized willingness as being indispensable. So again, willingness. What does willingness look like? In step 6, well, and perhaps in all of the steps, but in step 6 in particular, willingness to me looks like I am done running the show. Where I am in resentment, like in step 5, I've got this list of character defects that my sponsor was writing down. I was writing down: judgment, ego, pride, selfishness, resentment for sure, dishonesty, fear, all of these things that are defects that are blocking me from having a relationship with the higher power, with the God of my understanding, so that I can be spiritually awakened, right? I'm starting to become spiritually awakened at this point, but willingness is indispensable. So I've got to be willing to look at these defects in a different way, right? That's how this whole thing is coming together for me this morning as I was thinking about this discussion in the year 2020. I have to be willing to look at things in a different way. Now, I don't have to, but if I'm going to continue to walk this journey and live in a different way and literally live for the rest of my life in a different way, I have to look at everything through a different lens. Or I'm going to stay angry. I'm going to stay in fear. I'm going to stay dishonest. All of these defects are going to stay with me if I'm not willing. So not only can I spot when I'm in fear or when I'm in resentment, I have to find them objectionable. Like I have to find my dishonesty objectionable. Taking it further, 14 years ago, I didn't find my dishonesty objectionable. I found it reasonable. I found it justifiable. You made me dishonest. You made me resentful. There's no reason why I would want God to take that away. I deserve my resentment because you are a jerk. So the jerk part doesn't change. The situation doesn't change. My circumstances do not change. What I'm asking God to do is change me. But remember, it says, seek and you will find. This is a part of the seeking. Me being willing to see my dishonesty and find the dishonesty objectionable, that's where I'm seeking God. It's not in the finding, it's in the seeking. So this is part of the journey of seeking God and understanding how I can turn it over. Like how am I going to turn it over? This is a part of the turnover. This is the secret sauce where we're learning how to do that, what we talked about in step 3. So I am willing to let these things go because I find them objectionable, not because I don't want to say this because, well, anyway, my husband did some things that were just not very kind. Because I'm finding my resentment towards him objectionable, am I saying that it's not, that what he did was right? No, what he did was not right. But I am the one who's not free. I am the one who's allowing it to have power over me. So my resentment is not affecting him, it's affecting me. I have to look at my resentment through a different lens. I have to be willing to let it go because I find it objectionable, not because I'm trying to say what he did was right. I find it objectionable because it's keeping me from being free. It doesn't change what he did. It doesn't make what he did right or wrong. It's not about him or their actions anymore. So I'm having to look at things in a different perspective so that I can live in a different way. You guys, that's hard stuff. Step 6 and having this list of defects, let's look at the next sentence. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? So I've admitted that they're objectionable. Am I now willing to let God remove from me all of these things which are blocking me from a relationship, a true relationship, a personal relationship with the God of my understanding? Can he now have all of them, everyone? The interesting thing about this, and I'm going to talk about my divorce in just a second, because I think it's a great analogy as to how that changed my life after I, like 2 years into my sobriety, how step 6 really shone, was a bright light for me. But can you now take them all, every one of them, even the ones that I want to cling to? And that the next sentence is perfect. If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. I was angry. And I tell you what, it's justifiable. My girlfriends were saying he is a jerk. I mean, it was one of your closest friends in college, right? And it was another friend in the neighborhood. I mean, it was just, I'm like, really? 30-year-old friend. Now, obviously, it was, whatever. But I was never looking at my mistakes. I was only looking at his and hers. And I was getting more and more angry. Perfect example to me of step 6. When I was sitting in the lawyer's office the first go around, so Dave and I said we were, going to separate, and 2 years into my sobriety, whatever. And we were in the lawyer's office and I was so angry. I was so mad. I wanted to fight. I wanted to fight for everything, because how dare, So then we left the lawyer's office. We got into our daily lives, and we kind of put the whole divorce thing on hold. We just decided we were just going to put it on hold. The kids were very upset. We decided we weren't going to do it. So 9 months go by, and I'm working with my sponsor, and I did a 5th step. I'm starting to sponsor a lot more women. I was at Maggie's every day during that period. And this was 12 years ago. I was at every day. Like, you guys, Maggie's literally saved my life just as much as it saved anyone else's. That's why I love the concept of Maggie's. It's not Redwood Circle. It's the concept of you women and our fellowship and our community. But I was there every day. So 9 months later, my husband came up to me. I'll never forget it. Master bedroom, touched me on the shoulder and said, I want a divorce. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. And he did. He packed up his bags. And I remember walking into his closet and his clothes were gone. I walked into the lawyer's office and you guys, something washed over me. It was just the weirdest thing. I no longer, and it was a journey. It wasn't like a, ding, ding, ding. I walked in the lawyer's office and we sat there and we were in this meeting. And I just said, okay, take what you want, take what you need. We'll work this out. Because the thing about it, and this is all God, it's not me because I'm a fighter, is that our children deserved to have parents who loved each other. They didn't have to like each other, right? But they deserved us to be co-parents to them. And my boys were devastated by our divorce. And I remember sitting in the lawyer's office and the lawyer looked at me and looked at Dave and was like, you guys get along better than most married people I know. Oh my gosh, everything changed. We laughed. We tried to make the best of every situation. And it wasn't a happy time, but it was about perspective. It was about perspective. It wasn't about me. I was making it about me when I was fighting, and it became something different. It was about someone else. So I have to ask the question, which woman do you want to sponsor you? Do you want the woman who's angry and pissed off about the divorce? He did this to me. Or do you want the woman who's like, you know what? I'm not rolling over. I'm going to be strong, but I'm not going to be angry. Which woman do you want to sponsor you? My circumstances didn't change. The man was still leaving me. Guess what changed? God changed me. And it was in that moment of step 6 when I started finding those things objectionable. I started finding the resentment towards Dave objectionable. I started seeing my dishonesty where I was in fear. And I started seeing things from a different perspective. And I'm telling you guys, step 6 was loud and clear in that moment in my life. Now, I was willing. Did I want to? No. I still wanted to be pissed off at him. It felt really much better to be pissed off than it did to be, okay. I wasn't rolling over. But it's interesting because I asked God to remove those things because I wanted it for my children. I didn't think about the women that I was sponsoring too, and everyone around me. So anyway, I want you, when you're thinking about step 6 and these defects of character started to see in step 4 and 5, think about the defects of character that are blocking me from being in the sunlight of the Spirit, even though what someone has done to me was wrong. They're 90% wrong. Sometimes I'll tell the women I sponsor, okay, you can be angry for 24 hours. I'll give you 24 hours to be pissed off. Just go sit with it. But then you have to come back and you have to help a woman. You have to go out and find someone to help, because that's what living is all about. You're going to be, people are going to piss you off. There's no doubt. It's not about that. It's about how we react. And that's everything, the difference between sobriety and recovery. So let's look at step 7. So that's step 6. Before I move on to step 7, are there any questions to 6? So I've got this list. I find these things objectionable. I'm starting to see that how I have caused more damage, even if I didn't cause it in the outside world, I've caused it in my head, my thinking, and how I can use step 6 in every area of my life moving forward as I'm living in step 10. I never bring steps 4 through 9 to light without talking about their relevance in step 10 and how I'm going to use those steps for the rest of my life. Step 10 is not just step 10. Step 10 is 4 through 9. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about step 6? Because it's a good one. It changes everything about our lives for me. It helped me during the pandemic. All right. Okay.
Hi, I'm Kathy. I'm an alcoholic.
Oh, hi, Kathy. Hi, yes.
Okay, I didn't know how to word it because I'm taking notes. So what you're saying is that even though there's a situation, any situation, yeah, they're at fault, and you know they're at fault, and you know you've been scorned or hurt or betrayed, but you accept it for yourself, so then you don't have that block. that you don't,
Yes.
said the sunlight. So you accept you will be fine because you have faith in God above or your higher power. So
yes. Now, there's so many situations where there's rape or where there's domestic violence or where there's situations where I have been hurt. I mean, there's no doubt. But also what that does is it allows me to not take it personally that this is a sick person,
okay.
It's not about me. I'm making it about me, but I also get to make big decisions on who I'm going to have in my life. Just because someone's hurt me and I can start to see the different perspective and a different lens, right? It doesn't mean I'm going to walk right back into the marriage and get beat up again. No. Do you see what I'm saying? I find them objectionable, but I also find you objectionable. I don't have to have you in my life. I can be free. So don't mistake step 6 for being a doormat. I don't know if you've known me for 5 minutes, but I used to be a doormat. I'm not a doormat anymore, but I'm not angry. I was angry before. See the difference? And I thought, because I was raised that way. Aren't we all raised that if someone hurts you, you get to be angry with them? And it was justifiable. It's a totally different toolkit, a different perspective.
I have a question. The word objectionable, I think that through my recovery this time, it's just been such a hard word to grasp. Putting it based on, feelings and experience, I understand, but I just looked up the definition.
I was just going to look that up. Oh my God, you're so good. Yes.
Would it be that something that used to bring me pleasure, like a character defect, hanging on, jealousy, because I found it justifiable, you're wrong, it no longer brings me peace. Like I find it like unpleasant now, and I'm willing to turn over this unpleasant feeling, even though at one point it brought me pleasure. I found it justifiable. Is that what that means?
Yes, it is. See that big book dictionary right there? Go get one. It's everybody. Yes, it's so good. I have one here. You can get one at Dallas Center Group, and we used to have a bunch at Maggie's because I bought a bunch and we would just have them up there, sell them. But anyway, it's really good because some of these words in the big book are really important and it highlights some of those words. But yes, Kristen, the pleasure lasts for 24 hours or less, and then the pain comes right back. It's self-reliance, and it's like alcohol. I can fill up the hole in 2 minutes, but after the morning comes, the hole is still there. So that's self-reliance, not God reliance. But yes, that's exactly what it is. Objectionable means that I look at it from a different perspective, and it's no longer serving me. It was never serving me. It was always an illusion, living in delusion around it. It's a part of the mental illness, I think. Okay, so I just gotta say this, but can't we all be convinced that they're wrong and we are justified? I swear, I always bring up my husband, and God love him. I remarried the man. Okay, so it's totally okay now, but I use that as my trump card forever. He served me well. My alcoholism. All right, let's look at step 7 because we're going to sit here and I'm going to run out of time. Okay, when ready, we say something like this. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. So I found those lists of, or the defects of character objectionable, or I'm willing. Look, the other thing too, I got to keep the word for step 6 is willing, right? It's willing. I may not find him objectionable, but I know that if I don't find this resentment I have towards Dave objectionable, that I'm going to drink again because it's going to block me. It's not because it's going to force me to drink. It's just going to block me from God and this relationship and the spiritual awakening. And then I'm going to drink. Dave doesn't cause me to drink. My inability to have a relationship with my creator is what I cannot be spiritually awakened, right? So I have to be willing. I don't have to find him objectionable, but I'm willing. It's just like in step 2. I don't have to believe, but I better be willing to believe. It's the willingness. The same kind of concept, different details. So let's look at step 7. When ready, we say something like this. Now, this is a prayer, right? So this is the 7th step prayer. The 3rd step prayer is related to the 7th step prayer. When ready, we say something like this. My creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me. good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We have now completed step 7. I mean, in a nutshell, we're like, oh, okay, good. I've completed step 7. And la, 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 call my sponsor. No. I wish it's simple, but it's not easy. And that's like the easy no. Let's look at this prayer because it is unbelievable. To me, step 7 is about humility. That's the word for step 7 for me. And not for me, it's global. That's what everybody says about step 7. Oh, I didn't admit that. All right. Look at me. I'm always wanting to like be the original, person who thought of something. I'm such a know-it-all. Oh my God. Oh, okay. When ready, we say something like this. My Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. Okay. I love that line because I always thought that I was going to give God or my higher power the defects like the resentment, the dishonesty, the fear. But I also have to remember that the good things that I do, whether I'm a good mom or a good employee or a good sponsor or a good whatever, those are also God-given. It is a defect of mine to think that I am responsible for me being a good sponsor. It is a defect for me to think that I am a great mom. I am a great mom, but it is because I am filled spiritually. It is because I have been awakened. It makes me a better mom. There are tons of women out there who are great moms who are not spiritual at all. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that Lisa Kroencke, the drunk, without a spiritual program, is a crappy mom. I've got 2 boys that will walk in the door right now and they will testify to Lisa not spiritually fit and Lisa spiritually fit. So this is not saying that everybody who's not spiritually fit is a bad mom. It's Lisa, an alcoholic who's not spiritually fit. So I'm going to give God the accolades for everything. Me taking the accolades for all the good things I've done. Look, the best thing I do is drink. I do that really well. All the other stuff I need help with. I need help. So I'm going to give God the good and the bad. Like every morning, thank you for this life. I am going to give God the credit because it's about humility. This is how we're going to live in step 10. Look, our egos can get puffed up in a matter of seconds by an email, by a blog, by a social media post. You're so beautiful. Like how many times we changed our profile picture because we needed a bump up in our ego? I mean, literally. So those things we can get propped up. I mean, we've all done it, propped up. But what I have to remember is that my identity, it lies with the God of my understanding. I'm going to live vertical for the rest of my life. I'm going to ask God to remove those things so that I can better serve, that I can bear witness. I'm going to give God the opportunity to remove not just the bad, but I'm going to give God the accolades for all the good, all of me, right? And that's how I'm going to better represent. I'm so afraid to take a compliment now these days. And Paige has known me for a long time. And someone will say, oh, you look so, God, that was great. I'll go, oh, no, it was, oh God, I'm afraid to take credit, like earlier when I was know it all, I'm like, oh God, here I go again. I'm not original material, girl. I like to think I am. That's what I mean by that. I want everyone to know that God is the reason why I'm here. And I can't take the accolades for that. My ego would reassert itself in 2 minutes. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Again, emphasis on I'm praying that God remove from me the defects of character so that I can be useful, right? Not to stay sober. It's not to be happy. I'm not asking God to remove these things, the defects of character, so I can feel comfortable or happy. I'm asking God to remove these defects of character so that I can bear witness, so I can fit myself to bear witness, right? And that's the beautiful thing about step 7 is I can screw up. And the more I mess up, the better off I am, because I'm going to have all these opportunities to get closer to God. Like 4 and 5, like I can see the inventory. I can start to see my mistakes and step in the fourth column. But here in 6 and 7, I am really saying, no, I was a jerk. I'm willing for God to remove that because I find it objectionable. This is like living in the tools here in 6 and 7. And it's really cool because I can pray these things. On page 84, when it talks about step 10, that continue to watch for these things. When they crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. That's step 7. That's step 7. And it's cool because that's how I can ask God to remove it. I can ask God to remove when I'm trying to run the show. I can ask God to remove when my ego starts to go, yeah, look how cool I am. Look at all the good stuff I did. Or I can ask God, look, I'm being an asshole right now. So I start to have this self-awareness. Bill Wilson talks about it as God consciousness, that common sense thus becomes uncommon sense. So all the things that started to make sense to me before do not make sense to me anymore. I'm starting to see things from a different perspective, right? And this perception of what I thought was real suddenly changes. And it's not just a different set of eyeglasses, it's a different way of living. And so step 7 is huge because I have to remind myself, I was always wanting to feel happy and comfortable. And now I'm asking God to remove these defects so that I can help other people. And I tell you, it makes it easier. It makes it easier to be willing when it's not about Dave or me. It's about the woman I haven't met yet. And it's about how I can show up for my kids. All right. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. So there's a couple of things about this line. Grant me strength as I go out from here. As I go out from here, the whole low-hanging fruit in AA is because I'm about to go out and start to make amends. So as I go out from here, give me strength as I go out from here. But I also think it's about like literally living in it, because I'm always asking God for strength as I go out from here. As I walk out the door, I was on my knees this morning, as I'm in my car, give me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding and not mine. Women will ask, oh, I just don't know what to pray. I don't know what to pray. Okay, well, there's significant prayers in this book. Step 11 has a prayer inside the step, for the willingness. But this right here, this step, that grant me strength as I go out to here to do your bidding, it's not about me. It's about all the women out there and their families. It's not just the women where I can help. I can start to have a purpose in my life again, instead of just being Lisa the town drunk. Allison, my best friend in the whole world, the other day called me. We were talking about this thing, and she said, Lisa, it wasn't so much that you were angry. I mean, you were angry with Dave and your kids, but you were just more Cletus the clown drunk. Like, you're just the town drunk. Like, every time you just like in a corner, oh, there's Lisa. Okay. I mean, literally, that I can go from Cletus the town drunk to like a woman with character and a woman with purpose is literally a miracle. And step 6, that I can start to see these defects of character, which, look, I miss being able to be angry and justifying it. I do, honest with you. And then to look at 7 and say, I'm praying for these defects of character. I don't get to take the accolades. I thought me being a great mom was something that I was going to tell everybody about. Right? That's how those PTA meetings work. You just brag about what kind of great mom you are, about all the great things your kids are doing. I mean, all these things, I'm just looking at them in a different way. I can't emphasize enough how steps 6 and 7, they don't get enough content, I think, and then when we talk about our verbiage, when we talk about the steps, because they are so incredibly important. And just because of the brevity of the words, I don't want anyone to mistake the importance of what those 2 steps mean in our everyday lives, because they're incredibly important. All right. So then what I'll do is, after the women do 6 and 7, they'll call me, and then I'll have them do more reading. I'll ask them to read half of 76 all the way through page 84. And then we'll start to talk about steps 8 and 9. I literally spend a lot of time with the women I sponsor on 6 and 7 before we move on to 8 and 9, because they have to see that these defects of character before they're going to be able to make an amends. You're not going to be able to sit in front of a woman or a person and make amends if you're still justifying your anger and why you get to be angry at them. It will not work. You'll be making amends again. So it's important that we do these in order. And it's important that we have maybe not a whole understanding, because the understanding grows as we get older in sobriety, but that we have the willingness to know that I'm not going to be able to move forward. I can't just, oh, well, I'm going to still stay angry at that person and then move on to 8 and 9. It won't work that way. Not only will you might drink, which drinking is the least of my worries, the biggest of my worries is that I become an asshole again and I can't help other women. That worries me a lot more than alcohol, because that's really painful to be sober and to be miserable. So that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
That was amazing. Thank you very much. I don't have any questions. Does anybody have any questions? Well, Lisa, thank you so much. That was so great. I appreciate you coming on.
We hope you've enjoyed this From the Vault re-release of the Magdalen House podcast. Tune in every first and third Wednesday for a release from one of our 3 podcast series. To learn more about the Magdalen House and the services we offer, visit magdalenhouse.org or follow us on your favorite social media channels by searching for the Magdalen House.